Please rise to the panel.
Yes, good afternoon everybody and welcome to this licensing panel which is considering an application for a variation licence to Rich's Farmhouse Cider Mill Farm, Watchfield, Highbridge, TA94RD. I'm Barry Crowe and I'll be chairing this meeting today. I'm also a Vice Chair of the Licensing and General Purposes Committee and the District Councillor for Puriton and Woollavington. My colleagues.
Good afternoon, I'm Charlie Richards, I'm Councillor for Cheddar and Shipper.
Good afternoon, I'm Alec Glasswood, District Attorney Councillor for Watford Water.
Thank you. Take item 1 on the agenda, which apologies for absence.
Yes, Chairman, no apologies.
Any urgent business?
No, Chairman.
Take item 3, declarations of interest. No declarations of interest. Thank you. And we'll move on to 4 then. Consider the new application for a premises licence in respect of Rich's Cider Mill Farm, Watchfield, Highbridge, TA94RD. Following objections have been received. Oh yes, sorry. On my right is the... Right, there it is. Sorry, introduce yourself. Sorry. Yes, sorry.
Good afternoon, I'm Nigel Osborne, I'm Legal Advisor to the panel this afternoon.
Good afternoon, I'm Steve Taylor, the Committee Manager. Good afternoon, I'm Simon Baller, Licensed Officer for Sedgemoor District Council.
Doesn't work.
This one didn't work then.
Okay, you're live. All right.
Yeah, good afternoon, Richard Banks, Licensing Officer, Sedgemoor District Council.
Good afternoon, I'm Jan Scott, owner of Rich's Cider.
Good afternoon, Richard Banfield, Finance Director of Rich's Cider.
Good afternoon, I'm Molly Scott, the Restaurant Manager at Rich's Cider.
Well, hi there, I'm Russ Solway, one of the objectors.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tracy Solway, I'm also one of the objectors, but I'm also here to represent all the other people that have objected who unfortunately can't come today.
Thank you for that, thank you. Nice to see you here.
Thank you.
Right, we'll commence then with the application. Andy.
Thank you, Chair. So the panel was required to determine the application in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003 and to consider an application for a new premises licence under the Licensing Act. On the 15th of September 2005, the original premises licence application for Rich's Farmhouse Cider Mill Farm, Watchfield, Highbridge, TA94RD, was granted for a small bar, stroke museum and shop. The licence authorises the sale supply of alcohol from 0800 to 2300 hours, Monday to Saturday, and 0800 to 22:30 hours, Sunday and Good Friday. 0800 to 1500 and 1900 to 22:30 on Christmas Day. In 2007, a further application was received for a premises licence for the restaurant at the same location, and this was granted on the 26th of July 2007. The authorisation permitted the following licensable activities to take place daily from 0900 to 2300 hours: live music, recorded music, also provision of facilities for making music, for dancing and entertainment similar to music and dancing. A sales supply of alcohol from 0900 to midnight, and late night refreshment permissions are 2300 to 0200 hours. There is one exception which allows activities to continue at 0200 hours the following day with regards to New Year's Eve. On the 1st of June 2022, a new application for written licence for Rich's Cider Mill Farm, Watchfield, Highbridge, TA94RD was received from Mrs. Janice Scott in partnership with Mr. E. Scott. The application seeks authorisation to combine the existing 2 premises licences to extend the licensed area to include the restaurant garden, main car park, small bar, museum and shop area, and to seek authorisation for the following licensable activities. Sale and supply of alcohol from 0800 to 2300 Monday to Thursday, 0800 to 0100 hours Friday and Saturday, and 0800 to 2300 on Sunday. This is for on and off the premises. Provision of live music and recorded music from 0800 to 2300 hours Monday to Thursday, and 0800 hours to 0100 hours Friday and Saturday, and 0800 to 2300 hours on Sunday. This is indoors only. A redacted copy of the application is attached to this group of documents at Appendix A, and a new plan of the premises are attached at Appendix B. A more detailed plan is shown in Appendix C.
Sorry, can I just offer a point of clarification?
Yep.
Where you said that the licensed area to include restaurant garden, main car park, small bar, museum and shop. The main car park is not included in the licensable area that we've applied for. The main car park is at the back of the site, and we're applied to the farmyard.
Is this part here not a car park?
It's farmyard, so there's disabled parking in there.
Yeah, that's what's meant by that car park.
Okay.
Not the main car park in the
No,
back.
so it's not the main car park.
But on the diagram, it's clearly marked by a red line going around the area that wants to be licensed.
Yes, absolutely. The farmyard we have applied for.
And that is in Appendix B. So the current position, objections to the application have been received within the permitted time frame from residents. The objectives are listed below next to the relevant appendix for each submission. Mr. Brian Baker, Appendix D, Mr. G. Hill and J. Griffiths, Appendix E, Mr. and Mrs. Holcomb, Appendix F, Mr. and Mrs. Salvage, Appendix G, and Mr. and Mrs. Solway, Appendix H and J. Collectively, the objections touch on the licensing objectives, with most referring to the prevention of public nuisance. The police have agreed a set of conditions with the applicant for inclusion within any granted licence. These are shown in Appendix I. On the 8th of July, the applicants advised the licensing team that they had met with some objectors and agreed a compromise. The applicant therefore suggested the following changes to the hours requested. Reduce the extended hours to 12 p.m. for recorded music and alcohol, and reduce hours for live music to end at 11 p.m. We understand that this change relates to Friday and Saturdays, and that 12 p.m. refers to midnight. At the time of submitting the report, the licensing team has written to all the objectors, making them aware of the proposed amendments and requesting clarification of their intentions as to whether or to either maintaining or withdrawing the objection. As a result, it appears all the objections are still existing and valid, and Mrs. Tracy Solway will be speaking on behalf of the residents, as she's already said, with their consent, and therefore will be their advocate. So the panel options are to grant the application as applied for, to grant the application with attended conditions, or attached conditions, to grant the application in part, to grant the application in part with attached conditions, or to refuse the application completely. The licensed officer has determined that the representations are relevant. It is therefore the duty of the panel to determine the application with a view to promoting the licensing objectives, which are prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. The issue for the panel is whether the application as submitted sufficiently promotes the licensing objectives, whether the promotion of the licensing objectives requires the application to be granted subject to conditions, or whether the application requires it to be rejected because the licensing objectives cannot be met by the imposition of conditions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much. Have anybody got questions for the licensing officer?
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of clarifications, please, Mr. Gawler. If the application is granted within the licensing area that you were just discussing, including the car park, would that imply that live music or recorded music could be played outdoors?
Yes, under the Deregulation Act, any licensable activities can take place in that area.
Right, thank you. And the other question is, there don't appear to be in the report any comments from environmental health. Are there any comments that you're aware of from them?
I'm not aware of any comments at all from environmental health.
Thank you very much.
One point of clarification on that. One of the terms that we came to with the other objectives was that there would be no live music outdoors at any point. I think that was in there at some point.
just to
Thank
say,
you.
sorry,
Yes, carry
just
on.
to say I did actually see that, to be fair.
Yes. Thank you. Has anybody else got any further questions to the licensing officer? I've just got one. In their application, maybe the applicants can actually confirm this. They say there'll be no late night refreshments, yet on their license, they have a late night refreshments till 2 o'clock in the morning.
When the new licenses are combined, they'll remove that late night refreshment.
That'll be removed?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And do we know if any of the events held have had special events licenses?
I checked before this meeting started, and there's been no temporary event notices, applications at all.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Any further questions? We'll then proceed to the applicants. If you'd like to please put your case. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jan Scott, owner of Rich's Cider. Just to give you a little bit of detail about how it all began. So nearly 70 years ago, Father bought the farm, and it was a mill house with a windmill opposite, and he started making cider like lots of farmers did, and started selling it to local pubs and off licenses. And that grew, and that was his main business, selling cider to. There was a lot of pubs in Bridgewater actually who we supplied. Bridgewater was one of the main places in Taunton. That was our main business, and I grew up on the farm. I was born there in the bedroom. It's my bedroom now, so I've been there all my life. So it's, you know, obviously a main, but I know no other than living in Watchfield and running the business, working with Father. And then when Father sadly passed away 24 years ago, my son George was 6, and I was one of 3 girls, and he wanted me to promise I would keep the business going for George, because he was, you know, probably worried that it wouldn't happen, and I promised him I would do everything I could to keep the business going. Been a long, hard journey to keep it going, because very quickly I realised that the pub trade was no longer going to be there that Father had, and a lot of the pubs were already closing at that time that we were supplying, or they were taking a lot less cider, a farmhouse cider, because there was factory ciders coming in, and things were changing, and big chains were taking the breweries were taking the bulk of the cider that was drunk at that time. So I did stop and think, right, how am I going to keep this going? And the fortunate thing was that he didn't realise when he bought it 70 years ago was the location. The motorway wasn't there then. We're 2 miles from junction 22 of the M5. And then, of course, the caravan parks all came through Breen and so on. So in actual fact, when I go to the tourism meetings, there's more caravan parks in our area than anywhere else in Europe, which is quite hard to believe. But of course, it gives us a really good chance to be able to get visitors to the area, to be able to come and buy real cider, try it, buy it, and cheese and local products that we now sell lots of. So I decided that I was going to change and diversify into making it a little taste of Somerset, where we were going to be able to showcase a lot of what other people produced as well as our own. It started with the restaurant. We first built the original restaurant 15 years ago. It was just intended for afternoon teas and lunches. Didn't do any events, and were closed by 5 o'clock every day, which actually we are now. We closed every day by 6 o'clock. The restaurant's closed. The only evening events we do is when we do an event. Otherwise, I live there. My family grew up with, my 2 children grew up, and at 6 o'clock we like to shut the gates, and the day's done for us work-wise. It's our home. So it's never my intention to open every night or even every weekend. It's just very occasionally we do an event. So as time went on, the restaurant was very successful in that we did a lot of carveries. A lot of local people were asking to do meetings and so on. We had the Lions Club, the Rotary Club, various people, the young farmers wanted to use it. And as time went on, we realised that actually we were outgrowing it, and it was possibly time to extend. So we applied for the permission and got the permission to double the size of it, and to make it that we could do more carveries on a Sunday and more events. And we put in a bar. We didn't have a bar before. We put in a bar so that we could showcase our cider, so people could come in, and instead of, you know, them shuffling off and pouring half a cider somewhere else, we had the actual bar made out of my dad's old barrels in the centre. So we then just 6 months before it was finished, COVID hit. And it was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Because obviously I'd invested an absolute fortune to try to do it, and it was very worrying that how we were going to keep it going. Anyway, consequently, we opened just as the Help Out to Eat Out camp. They did the Help Out to Eat Out campaign, and that helped us a lot because it brought people in who didn't know that we, doubled the size of it. We had plenty of room. People could sit in the garden. We did a play area for the children. It's very family orientated. So consequently, as time went on, various people asked us again, like Rotary, Lions, and then 50th birthdays, 60th birthdays. And then a friend of mine who lives in Bridgewater, who's a hairdresser, said she'd been badly let down, could we do her daughter's wedding? We never had any intention of doing weddings at that time, but she was a friend, and so we agreed, and we did the wedding, and it went very well, and they were really happy. In order to continue with the business, we've now built a farm shop. So that was the project we've just done now. We opened it about 3 weeks ago. And consequently, we now can offer meat, deli, cheese, and a lot of local things. Because when COVID hit, a lot of people coming to the cider shop in the village and surrounding areas and saying, wish you sold bread, wish you sold milk, wish we could buy more groceries here because there's nothing in our surrounding villages. You have to literally go into the town. So we decided to do the farm shop, and that's been a great success. We've been open about 3 weeks. We invited all the village. A lot of them came, including some of the objectors came on the Friday evening, and sat and chatted with me, watched the band, had some food. Nobody mentioned anything about anything that was going on behind the scenes with, the license. So to our surprise, on the Tuesday, when the lady across the road came over and said, can I speak to one of the owners? Not sure if you realise that somebody's going around the village, putting leaflets in, going back and then campaigning with a petition against your licence. Complete out of the blue, didn't have any idea that there was any problem at all. So it came as a big shock that, people weren't happy, because it would have been nice if people that had come to the opening of the farm shop had said, actually, we've got a problem, Jan, what about? And we would have come to a compromise and we would peace out here. But there, that's just how it's gone. So consequently, several are fully supportive who live across the road as well. There's one family who live on the end next to the Solways who came over to say that they're fully supportive, and they're opposite as well. And several others all along in the same row, in the same sort of proximity. But obviously it's affecting some people, but not others more than others. So, but what I will say is I don't want to cause anybody any undue upset. If anybody's going to hear the noise more than anybody, it's me. Because if you look at where the farmhouse is and where my bedroom is, and I don't work in the restaurant in the evenings, that there's events, it will affect me more than anybody. So I don't want the noise either. So I just hope that we can come to some sort of sensible decision that also means that I can do events. Because if you accept a wedding, somebody wants to do a wedding or a 50th birthday, they don't want it to end at 11 o'clock. They can still have a drink till 12, but there's absolutely no music at all, background music. That's what we're trying to get to, that finish the live music at 11. Happy to do that, but really we need another hour for customers to be able to just have something for background music. So Richard is going to take over with just a little bit more, and then we're done. Thank you everybody for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jan. So initially the application was put in to allow us to operate under a single licence rather than the 2 separate licences that we've got for the shop and the restaurant, both of which would have required like a variation otherwise. So really it was an admin exercise to reduce the amount of paperwork we have to do. We've invested really heavily in recent years to create the site we have today, and attracting a limited number of events, parties, weddings and wakes was and remains a fundamental part of the business plan. Private parties and weddings particularly are a great deal of work for staff, but are extremely lucrative. The smallest wedding, for example, would generate well in excess of £10,000 in revenue for us as a business. I'm really not overstating when I say that being in a position to offer those is absolutely business critical. It's essential for the continued operation of Rich's Cider that we're in a position to cater to weddings, private functions, which we simply can't do with the restriction on all music at 11 p.m. We've offered what we think is a more than reasonable compromise, restricting music to midnight, and any earlier than that is going to significantly restrict our ability to trade. We've met with Neighbours made compromises, as I say, and all their neighbours, other than the Solways and the Holcombs, had already confirmed they were happy and were, as far as we were aware, going to withdraw their objections, which I believe Mrs. Solway confirmed in a correspondence of the 25th of July that she had also spoken to all the objectors and they were happy to accept the above new proposed times. We just cannot reasonably agree to either additional compromise without severely restricting our trading. We need an outside licensed area to operate. I believe that was acknowledged in some later correspondence as well. The farmyard gives us the opportunity flexibly to respond to weather conditions, customer demands, and maximise the outdoor space we have. And it's really important we have the ability to do so. Closing all the doors and windows is impractical, particularly in a post-COVID world where ventilation is important. The buildings are designed to make the most of the patio and garden areas, and in the summer can become extremely hot if windows and doors are not open. We did submit some video evidence. I'm hoping everyone has seen it. If not, we have some we can play if we need to. Just let me know. Given that on those videos, that is the loudest possible noise we can make, and the staff would not stay and clean the restaurant while that noise was at that level. It was too loud for them. And music from the restaurant was completely inaudible on the verge outside the Solway's house on that video. We're kind of struggling to understand exactly what the problem is. We've been informed today that Mrs. Solway is going to be the spokesperson for the other objectors of the meeting. Our real concern, particularly noting the overwhelming similarities in the objections and correspondence we've seen today, is that Mrs. Solway is coercing the neighbours into submission of objections they do not necessarily personally hold. We were initially informed there were going to be at least one objection by another neighbour who came around to let us know she was being pressured into signing one. We really feel coercing statements from writing documents that have been presented to neighbours for signature is a significant step beyond the limits of what should be acceptable. Although we don't have anything in writing specifically, when we, Molly, Scott and I, spoke to Graham Hill, he told us that he personally had never had any issues. The only night he'd ever heard anything was wassail, which he normally attended or was all wrapped up by midnight anyway, and he had only submitted an objection because Mrs. Solway had been so insistent that he do so. We didn't hold a preliminary meeting with neighbours, as we've only ever had one incident or been informed that anyone had any issue whatsoever with any of our operations on one occasion. On that occasion, Mrs. Solway had come over at approximately 9:15 p.m, requesting that we turn music down and shut the doors, which of course we did. Unfortunately, and without wanting to go into too much detail, Mrs. Solway's behaviour on that occasion was such that we were forced to tell restaurant supervisors that should any similar event occur without Jan O'Brien being present, police were to be called immediately. Without wanting to make a specific issue about that, I do know that Jan spoke to Mr. Solway and told him that while we would always be open to discussions if there were problems, what had occurred on that night was fundamentally unacceptable and would need to be dealt with should it reoccur. As I say, we've had no other communications or notifications that anyone has ever had any problem prior to receiving these objection letters. Also, I think it's probably pertinent to point out that within 100 metres of our sites is Watchfield Inn, which is in itself licensed until 2 a.m. on Fridays and Saturdays for live and recorded music inside and outside. The Watchfield regularly has extremely noisy events and has an extensive programme of events planned. We have actually got some of their plans here, which I don't know, Mike, can you pass those around for me? So this is what the Watchfield are planning in the next few weeks, including an all-day, rave by the looks of things on the 20th of August.
Sorry, I don't mean to be rude and interrupt, but we were told that we weren't allowed to bring any new evidence in at this meeting. Is that not correct?
I think this is real evidence for your case.
Okay.
This is
No, fine, that's fine, absolutely fine, thank you.
So yeah, the Watchfields have had several issues with police and attendance, if not incredibly regularly, then certainly often enough to occasion comment. And on the evening of the 15th of July, a heavily intoxicated man was passed out in Mr. and Mrs. Solway's driveway for about around an hour at 9:15 p.m. We're not aware the watch field have been subject to any similar objections or obstructions as we have with this application. And as I say, we've done what we feel we can to compromise as far as possible at the moment. I also wanted to address wassail, because I know that was mentioned in some correspondence. Historically, the wassail has always been done in collaboration with either the local Rotary Club or following Rotary Club, the Vagabonds Carnival Club. In the last couple of years, it's been primarily run by ourselves, with the Vagabonds Carnival Club still providing all stewarding and site services on the night in return for a significant donation to their charity. The event's only ever been run as a charitable event. We've raised hundreds of thousands of pounds for charity and have put a defibrillator in Watchfield Village. We absolutely acknowledge that for the past couple of years when we were in control of the event, we should have had a 10th notice in place. As part of the handover, as us taking that over, it wasn't mentioned. I think it's a case of we've assumed Vagabonds have continued to apply and they've assumed that we have. I'm not aware there's any reason why we would have been refused a 10th notice, and we absolutely will apply for one as and when we ever run a wassail event in future, should we? And yes, cider production, although it is and we hope always will be the cornerstone of what we do, would not have kept us going as a business. Diversifying, capitalising on the wonderful site we've created is what's allowed us to survive, thrive and grow to the business we are today. We currently employ 65 staff and are actively recruiting for more at the moment. We welcome visitors from all over the country and provide an exceptional high quality outlet for traditional Somerset producers and suppliers. We'd like to think we're a real asset and benefit to our community.
Thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you. Does anybody have questions for the applicants? Licensing officer.
One question, please, Chair. When you say when the video recording that you produced, when that was taken, were the doors and windows closed of the premises where the music was coming from?
No. So all the doors and windows were wide open, as wide as they could possibly be. All the music system we have in the restaurant was turned up to the maximum volume we can possibly play, which, as I say, was too loud to be comfortable to stay in the building. And by the time we got even over the wall, it was barely audible, and across the road, it was inaudible on video.
Can I,
Yes.
I think the objection really isn't to your recorded music inside your restaurant. It was recorded music in the garden and any live music that you hold that is extremely loud. And I acknowledge that you have removed the external speakers, which I have thanked you for as well. Yeah, no, I have thanked you.
I forgot to mention that. Yeah, they were done yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. I think they were done before that actually, because I saw them taken down.
I got the bill yesterday.
Yeah, when you did the recording, I don't think those were there. Possibly.
They were in place when the recording was done.
Okay, the dial was turned to zero. The dial was turned to zero in that video for the garden speakers, so they weren't on. But that's not really the issue. The issue is the live music late at night, and that recording was taken during the day with no event happening, with no live music, and no customers. The restaurant was empty. So just to make that point, that's what I could see in the video.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And my colleagues.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Thinking more about this issue of noise, and you have talked about the video that you've shown. In your application, you give comprehensive information about CCTV and keeping recordings of who comes and making that available, but there is no similar plan for monitoring of noise. So, I mean, there would I would imagine with your premises need to be laid out how you're going to monitor noise, where on the premises you're going to monitor it, what records you're going to keep, and how those are going to be made available in the future. I mean, do you have those plans? Because they're not in the formal application.
No, they weren't in the formal application. We have outlined those in responses to the objections. And yes, the plan absolutely is, we've got a decibel meter, and the plan is absolutely to take at least 2 readings at various intervals, as is practical, at any event that is held, and we will keep those records along with all the other business records we keep. And they will be available for inspection at any time. If we need to provide them to somebody or send them anywhere, we absolutely will. That's no problem at all.
Ask a question, Chair?
Yes, Chair. Certainly, carry on.
Where will the readings be taken?
At the moment, we propose to take one from the farmyard, so the front of the restaurant, one from the top of the decked area in the garden, and one again from the verge outside of the restaurant.
Wonderful, thank you. Just to my understanding, then, you wish to have licensing of the live music till 11 o'clock on all nights. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what we've got in for.
Yeah. And for recording music till only on Friday and Saturday till midnight.
Yes.
And according to your application, there'll be no outside live music.
No outside live music of any kind.
Thank you.
If we ever wanted to do any outside live music, again, it would be at
You'd apply for it. Okay, thank you. To the applicant. Just sorry, I was just getting.
Can I just have one final clarification, because I'm a little bit confused about this. What is the reason for including the car parking areas as licensed premises? If they're not going to be for alcohol consumption, they're not going to be for music. Why?
As I tried to say earlier, it is not a car park, it is the farmyard. And outside the front of the restaurant, we've got an expansive seating area. People need to drive through the farmyard. There are 3 disabled parking bays, but it is not a parking area. So, yeah, I mean, we have the facilities to take orders and serve across tables outside. So we would like the opportunity to be able to do that. It's a private farmyard, you can't see into it from the road.
Is that at the rear of the premises?
No, so there's got to be approximately a 7-foot wall across the whole of the frontage. So there is a double electric gate that opens into the farmyard. As you drive in, on the right, you've got Mr. Scott's house. Behind that, we've got the museum and the shop. All the production area goes along the buildings on the back. And on the left of the farmyard, we've got 3 disabled parking spaces against the back of the wall there. An outside seating area for the restaurant and the restaurant. So it is just literally driving through to the car park. It is not a car park in itself.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any of my colleagues have any further?
So
Sorry.
we do have a picture of what we've got outside at the moment. So
thank you.
Shall I run it around?
No, it's all right.
Okay.
Unless anyone else wants to see it.
Just, sorry.
No, we're fine.
Okay.
It's just really to show you that there's a big walnut tree in the middle of our yard. That's the restaurant, and seating around that area where people like to sit with dogs and prams, etc. And they might want a pint of cider while they're sitting under the tree outside the restaurant. Of course, we had to use that area during COVID because of the restrictions on being allowed indoors. So people quite like to still sit outside because of COVID.
Thank you.
One final thing I did forget to say, sorry. We've never ever had a police incident, which I just wanted to draw people's attention to. And Nicola Cooper, who was the police licensing authority lady, didn't actually know who we were. She had to look us up to come and find us. And we've been licensed for quite a long time. So I think we're doing all right so far.
Thank you. Any further questions for the applicant?
Just want to seek some clarification on recorded music. Is it your intention to have recorded music outside?
We do have a limited number of speakers outside, and we would like to be able to play recorded music outside. I think we would probably be open to restricting that later in the night. That's absolutely fine. I mean, what we play is very low-level background music that you would kind of sit down and have a meal and not really notice happening, but adds a bit of texture to the experience.
Thank you.
Chair, can I just clarify?
Any further? Yes,
With regards to the outside licensed area, are you looking at taking money from the outside area for purchases?
We don't at the moment, but we'd like to.
Yeah.
I mean, we've
That's
got
why you want
the facility to, and to have to get someone to walk in and pay doesn't sound like a big deal, but if we don't have to, then.
Yeah, that's fine, thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for the applicant? No. Can you like to place your Ms. Howard, your objections to the application? Yes, yes, yes.
Hi, so as you know, my name's Tracy, and I'm here on behalf of all the objectors. You know that we objected to the increased licensed hours and the increased outside licensed area. And we've also talked that there's been some agreement with everyone really with regard to the amendments to the times that Riches have proposed. And also I'm pleased to say that they have taken down the exterior speakers that faced our property, which is a great help. The main 2 points that seem to be still not agreed is the overall licensed areas for the sale of alcohol. We would like to see them kept inside. We are all very anxious and fearful for the future if Rich's Cider is granted a large outside licensed area, as it provides them with the maximum flexibility to create a public nuisance by holding outside noisy events every day of the year, which would be distressing for frankly the whole neighbourhood. We also have concerns for public safety, as the premises are a working farm with working machinery and cars driving through the applied for licensed area. And we would like reassurance that there are adequate risk assessments and measures in place to keep their customers safe whilst they are drinking outside in that area. We feel that if Rich's did not intend to hold these types of events, they would not be applying for such a large outside licence area, nor would they be advertising as a wedding venue and erecting large banners inviting people to book their events, all of which they are doing. Rich's can apply for a temporary event notice for any event throughout the year, and we feel that this is ample for occasional events, if it is truly what they intend to do. But we also feel that they should still take responsibility for the noise that may be produced from those events. A second point that is still not agreed is the doors and windows being kept closed for events and for the music being kept inside, which they have agreed that part of it. The video submitted this week by Rich's Cider appears to have been recorded during the day with only inside background music. The outside speakers were turned off, and there is no event with live music being played. The very end shows an early evening event or gathering, again without live music, which is perfectly acceptable to all of us. In their recent letter, Richards do not agree with closing the doors for events, but this video contradicts this by saying they do close the doors for the events, but clearly they haven't, and as they have said today, they're not happy to do so. The daytime noise emphasised on the video, where there was evidence of noisy traffic, we feel that this would have been helped if Richards had adhered to their planning conditions, which is not relevant today, I know, but obviously that would reduce the traffic noise, but they didn't plant the hedges they were asked to. We've all been disturbed with Richards when Richards have held live music events and discos. Many of them have been in breach of their current licensing hours for live music. Some have been held in marquees in the car park, which is outside of their current licence perimeters, and possibly without a temporary event notice. We all live on or within 13 metres of Richards boundary, and we have lived here peacefully for many years, some of us for generations. We've lived there for 30 years. My husband has worked for Jam for 50 years. As a group, we are asking the panel to consider all views, proposals and conditions so that we have an outcome whereby Richards still prosper, but that they must exercise respect and consideration to their close neighbours, many of whom are elderly, to preserve our peace and quality of life in our own homes in what is otherwise a lovely, quiet and rural village, and this is why we choose to live in the countryside. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Do any of my colleagues have any questions for applicant?
You're telling us that many people have been disturbed
Yes,
at times because of the activities of Rich's Cider,
yes.
and from music in outdoor marquees.
Yeah.
On those occasions, have you made any objections or representations to the district council here, to environmental health, and what has
No, I
been the
haven't.
follow-up?
No, I haven't. My husband has worked there, and I didn't feel that I could,
And what about the other objectors that you're representing? Have they,
not to my knowledge.
so is that because it hasn't been bad enough, or?
I think it's because the wassail in particular was once a year, and like Jan says, you know, we're all a small community, and we support Riches, we support their shop, their restaurant. We have absolutely no grind with them or want to cause any problems. But obviously now with them asking to extend their licensing area and hours on a regular basis, that could cause a public nuisance, noise, disturbance.
And if they were to undertake to regularly monitor the noise levels at the perimeter of the property, which would also be the perimeter of your property,
Yes,
would that satisfy you?
that would certainly help.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to ask any further questions of the applicant?
I mean, the one point of clarification, the only events that have ever been held in a marquee are the wassail event, which I think I've already addressed. And the longer term plan is we have two other entrances to the site. You'll probably see them if we look at the larger village map. If I can find it. I can't find it, but that's okay. Just on the opposite side of the farm buildings, there is a gateway. Lovely. So this is us here. There is a gateway that goes in here, and we have an entrance up here. And the longer term plan with the car park down here is to have a one in, one out, in and out system, which means, no vehicles would go through the farmyard, and partly that is with a view to making it as safe as we can for this site, because we do have one main entrance at the moment. We are very well risk assessed, but it is something that we're aware of, and it's something that we're going to be looking to address in the coming years. We have already spent more money than I like to think about, to be quite honest. So it's a couple of years away, but that is what we would like to think we'll be doing in the future.
Do you have any further comments on the remarks made by Mrs. Hallway at all regarding the functions you held so far?
So I run the restaurant at the farm there, and I work pretty much every single one. We have closed the windows and doors in the past because we've been asked to. In the winter, it's more than fine, but it does get quite stuffy in there. It's a warm building as it is, and when you've got so many bodies in there, but you need some airflow in there. It gets stuffy, it gets hot, and it's just not feasible. And with regards to having the doors closed, people walk out the doors. I can't have somebody stood on a door, being a doorman, opening and closing it. How can I control that? But yeah, we have, on an occasion, we had to bring a dog inside. We don't allow dogs to let a baby inside because they were sat outside. The level of music was fine for them to be sat outside, but I then had to bring them in, and I have tried my best to adhere to everything until now, and we've done 20 events in the last year. It's very rare, a 40th, a 50th, a wedding. We don't do 21st, 18th. It's all large parties that are barbecues, easy, nice, fun times to have outside.
Yeah, I'd just probably reiterate that before Rich's Cider is Rich's Cider, it's Scott's home, and we are advertising for events. As I've said already, it's a real cornerstone of the business plan, but there is only a certain type of event we would consider, and that is not a rowdy one, fundamentally. It's
For example, now we've just opened up a website on our website, a page for weddings and events, and I've had 16 inquiries and I've not responded to any single one because of this matter.
We've not accepted any of 16 that we've had until this is resolved, but we are very picky on what sort of events we cater for.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any further questions or submissions?
Would it cause you any difficulties if there was a restriction on you having or not having marquees in the licensed area?
On a day-to-day basis, absolutely not. In terms of doing the charity event, we do the wassail. I don't think we'd be able to do it without a marquee because it's the 20-something of January normally, and yeah, there's only so much you can do in the dark and the cold. So generally speaking, absolutely not. But if we could still have it on occasion with the tens, absolutely fine.
Is there any further points?
Vice Officer, you have any?
Not really, Chair. I'd like to just clarify, I mean, with the open door situation, you could rectify that by putting another door into like an airlock, and go out one door, go into another one. That's what most venues do.
The doors Mr. Solway is referring to are 4 very large bifolding doors. We would have to effectively build a building to put some doors in to do that.
And a lot of the time that people have events with us, they use, the news extended side goes out by the bifolding doors. We have it as sort of a whole thing. So if they've got a barbecue, they get some eat inside, some sit outside. We've got kids, we have a play area. They want to be able to watch the kids. It sort of makes it into one.
It was designed as one space, effectively.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I,
Mrs. Howard, do you have any further?
sorry, yeah, can I just make a point with the bifold doors? The night that they referred to when I went over because it was very loud, the band was actually placed in the doorway with the doors open, and whilst we say please keep the live music inside, really that may as well be outside.
I just like to point out it wasn't a band, it was actually one male singer.
It was
amplified live music.
It was amplified pointing into the building rather than amplified pointing out of the building from where they were positioned. Was the theory.
Thank you very much.
I have a photo if you'd like to see.
Thank you. Any further points? Do you have any further points to raise, Mrs. Howard?
No, thank you.
Okay. Do you have any further points to raise?
My colleague?
No? Right. I think that completes that.
We will now, oops.
We'll now retire and consider our findings. Thank you so much.
Please rise to the panel. Please rise to the panel.
The decision notice of the panel. The licensing and gambling panel has been asked to consider an application for a new licensed premise for the premises known as Witch's Cider, Mill House, Watchfield, Somerset, following objections from local residents. Whilst this is a new application, it is in effect an application to consolidate 2 existing licenses. The panel is advised that the applicant has reached agreement with the police for conditions to be included on any licence that may be granted, and therefore there is no formal objection from them. The panel has considered all the evidence presented by the applicant and the objectors, both in person and in writing. The panel's decision is made in accordance with the Council's statement of licensing policy, the Secretary of State's guidance, and current case law. The applicant has submitted for the sale and supply of alcohol between the hours of 800 hours and 2300 hours, Monday to Thursday, 800 hours to 1 a.m. in the morning from Fridays to Saturdays, and 800 to 1300 hours on a Sunday, on and off the premises. provision of live music and recording music indoors only between 800 and 2300 hours Monday to Thursday, and 800 to 1 a.m. in the morning, Fridays and Saturdays, and 8 o'clock till 2300 hours on Sunday. The panel is advised that following meeting with the objectors, the applicant wishes to amend the application to bring forward the terminal hour for the sale and supply of alcohol and provision of recording music to midnight, Friday to Saturday, and for live music to 2300 hours, 7 days a week. The reasons. It is apparent to the panel that there is no overwhelming objection to the application for the premises license in principle. In fact, most objectors were in support of the premises. However, the terms of that license, especially in the impact in relation to disturbance from loud music, is of a major concern to the objectors. The expansion of the business given the objectors cause some concern over the potential increase of noise, especially from music. The applicant acknowledged that the operating schedule was silent on use control, but noise monitoring would be conducted with an assessment of the potential for noise disturbance had been undertaken, which led to them believe that this would not be any issue. It was rightly pointed out that the assessment had been undertaken during the day with recorded music and not live music. The panel reconsidered that this was a well-prepared application with a comprehensive operation schedule. However, it was apparent to the panel that the application, whilst being comprehensive for the day-to-day activities of provision and sale of alcohol, was lacking when it came to music events and protection of the amenities of residents within the vicinity of the premises, as identified in the Council's licensing policy, paragraph 75.1. The objections presented to the panel in the main express concern over the impact of nuisance from music, mostly late at night. In addition, the objectors stated that some previous events held in the premises had not complied with the current licensing conditions. It is clear that there is no objection to a license in principle, and the issue is potential for the noise disturbance late at night, especially from music. To that end, the panel believed that suitable conditions could be addressed for these concerns. Accordingly, it is the decision of the panel to grant a premises license for Witches Cider, Mill House, Watchshore, Somerset, on the following terms. Together with the submitted operating schedule, the conditions agreed with the police, and in order to promote the licensing objectives, the following conditions. Terms. The sale and supply of alcohol from 800 hours to 2300 hours, Monday to Thursday. From 800 hours to midnight, Friday and Saturday. And from 800 hours to 2300 hours on Sunday, on and off the premises. Provision of recording music indoors only from 800 hours to 2300 hours, Monday to Thursday, and 800 hours to midnight, Friday and Saturday, and 800 hours to 2300 hours on Sunday. Provision of music indoors only from 800 hours to 2300 hours, 7 days a week. Conditions. 1. Noise emanating from the licensed activity from the premises must not be clearly distinguishable above the background levels 1 metre from the facade of nearest residential properties not in the same ownership of the applicant. Whilst live or recorded music takes place indoors, the licence holder shall undertake regular monitoring of the noise levels, such monitoring not to be less than 2 hours after 9 p.m. at the nearest noise sensitive locations to ensure compliance with the noise limit described in 1 above. A record shall be kept of monitoring, including any actions taken in response to any complaints received from local residents, and such records to be made available for inspection by the licensing team or police on demand. 3. The use of outside marquees shall be limited to 4 occasions per annum. Any recording music shall not be played outside after 22:30 hours. That's the decision of the panel, the application. May I thank you all personally for attending today and for the points you have put to the panel. It's much appreciated. Thank you.
Please rise for the panel.